Medicaid expansion. Well, I was raised where the family takes care of the family and you shouldn't have to depend on the government so much, especially in the issue of health care. Now, expanded nationwide health care did not become an issue until Bill Clinton's administration, and he assigned his wife Hillary to check into an expanded national health care program for the country. And now all of a sudden everybody's talking about repealing Obamacare and expanding Medicaid. And at first I was against expanding Medicaid, to tell you truthfully, because from my understanding is the federal government gives you the money up front, and then 3 or 4 years later the state's supposed to pick up their share of the expenses. And so therein you got to project for the revenue stream as if you're going to have the revenues to cover the added expenses caused by your Medicaid expansion. So, but our sister state, Louisiana, has implemented it. Louisiana, our neighbor, has implemented it, and it's created 19,000 jobs and saved the states hundreds of millions of dollars. So anything that'll create jobs and save the state money or create revenue, I would have to take a look at. You know, I've got to be objectionable about it. Now, the way I was raised is the family takes care of the family growing up. But now you got the government taking the place of the family, and you got nuclear families created, and you got your kids living all in other states of the country. Well, we need to keep your kids here. But expanding Medicaid, yes, we will take a look at it. One of my main platforms issues, of course, is the legalization of a recreational cannabis industry here in the state to create additional revenues, a new tax source so we don't have to raise taxes, and also we can use these revenues to help repair the roads and bridges. Now, they have made mention of the lottery just being legalized, and they're going to appropriate the money from the lotteries to improve road and bridges. That's only projected to be $80 million a year. David Berria, who is the head of the Democratic Party here in the Capitol, or he was, projects that it's $400 million a year just to keep up with current infrastructure improvements and repairs. And the $80 million is just going to put a little dent in that. It's not going to address the issue. So you are going to have to prioritize your road and bridges and which ones are the most important. And you may be able to do without some of your old roads as far as that goes. I mean, because who's going to pay for keeping up these new roads that are being built, you know? And everybody wants new and improved everywhere. And that's why you got dilapidated inner cities, because everybody wants to be somewhere where it's new and improved and taking the money out of the inner cities, especially here in Jackson. So my main source of additional revenue will be the cannabis industry to generate, for example, Colorado has generated $1 billion extra in tax revenue in the past 4 years from their cannabis industry. The rest of the country's doing it. So why does Mississippi got to be last? It's not like we got a surplus of revenue. If we did, we would repair our roads and bridges. But roads and bridges, to the point, is just another point of where they were neglected over the years, and it just allowed to build up to this point to where it became a catastrophe in the state. Now, I'm more of a person that takes proactive action, and I would rather have preventive maintenance to where you take care of it before it becomes a problem. I believe you got to educate your way out of poverty. And Mississippi is a poverty-stricken state with over 40% reliance on the federal government for its income, because we have such a low per capita per person income in this state. We only got one county in this whole state, and that's Madison County, that's above the national per capita income for the whole country. The rest of them are below it. So you got to educate your way out of poverty. Now, up to 6 years old, your children formulate 90% of their behavior before age 6. So I think we need to start putting a high priority on kindergarten and educating them before they get 6 years old, because that brain's just like a sponge and absorbing everything around them. So we need to instill values and characters in them before they're 6 years old. And so the point just keeps continuing that you got to educate your way out of poverty. Well, to do that, you got to fund education. I think it's more important to fund education than it is for road and bridges. I'm sorry. But they are the two top priorities in the state. And we also need affordable health care in the Medicaid. I mean, I'm all for expanding licensed nurse practitioners' duties and responsibilities. I mean, we can't have a major hospital in every rural county. You only got 1,300 people that live in Itawamba County. I mean, it's a Queen of County. Do you realize that? You can't support a hospital, a full-time hospital in that county. I mean, you can have a major county every 1 out of 5 counties, and you can put a licensed nurse practitioner in there, and she can have a computer fiber optic to the nearest hospital, so she can counsel with a doctor while she's seeing the patient. But we ought to treat it like the MASH movie. Everybody remembers the MASH movie. And they had triage units close to the battlefront, and they stabilized the victim, and then they moved them to a more established hospital with more services. That's how I think we ought to handle health care and get health care out to the rural communities. And from what I hear, we spend $8,000 a year less on student supplies, equipping the students with the materials they need to be successful. And I hear that we spend $8,000 less a year than the surrounding states, our competitor states around us. And I hear that teachers only maybe stay in the profession for maybe 5 years, so we have a hard time keeping good qualified full-time teachers. And a lot of our full-time teachers or positions are occupied by part-time teachers now. So there is a teaching crisis, shortage in the state, raising the income level of the teachers, pay of the teachers to at least the surrounding states average, and ensuring that the damn state's pension fund is fully funded for the state employees. I mean, the state employees hadn't had a raise in 14 years. Jackson firefighters hadn't had a raise in 19 years. Everybody wants the money, but these guys in office or running for office, they don't have a clue where the revenue's gonna come from. They forget that Mississippi's a broke-ass state and we need the money. And in order for us to compete competitively with the rest of the country and the other states, we need to be able to put together an attractive package to draw that industry here. Now with the cannabis industry, you don't have to issue any tax credits. They'll come on their own, and they'll bring the capital with them. And we'll revitalize the downtown areas. We'll revitalize the Mississippi Delta, and we'll have money to fund education so we can educate our way out of poverty. My single issue Singletary. Of course, cannabis legalization. I will expect a full, complete, competitive recreational cannabis legalization bill out of the legislature within the first month of meeting and on the floor for debate. I want to make Mississippi one of the most competitive states in the country in the cannabis industry, and I want us to stop being a bunch of damn hypocrites. You understand? You've been growing weed at Oxford up at Ole Miss for 50 years, and you've been throwing people in jail for it, and you've been denying cancer victims and Alzheimer's patients the medicines that they need, and you're denying me. I'm a chronic pain sufferer. I'm over 60 years old now. My body's failing on me. I'm walking with a limp. I'm half handicapped. I can empathize and relate to the handicapped and disadvantaged people. And we are going to take care of the mentally sick also on my watch. And for my second point, I've been out talking to voters on the street, and they tell me they would entertain the idea of term limits for elected officials. And I can't say that I'm opposed to that. Governor Mike Huckabee of Arkansas is for term limits. I'm not opposed. I mean, I'm running for governor. That's a 2-year term limit there. That's 8 years total I can serve as governor. So that tells you right there I don't want to be a career politician. Politicians were never meant to lay up in office for 40 years and get rich on the back of the taxpayer. So I'm not opposed to term limits. I suggest 8 years for House of Representatives. I suggest 12 years for Senate. We'll leave 8 years for lieutenant governor and governor. That's fine with me. And we might as well hold our federal elected officials to our state election laws too. So that means 8 years for federal representatives and 12 years for senators and 20 years for judges. We're not going to let the judges lay up on the bench for 40 years anymore.